The idea of flight has tantalized us for centuries, and with that, the ever-advancing technology of flight allows us to conquer the skies. The necessity for air superiority pushes our aviation science further and further, and with that comes the need for test pilots, men and women of the United States Air Force, willing and able to strap themselves into an unproven aircraft and push them to their limits. One of these pilots, who dared to dream to shiver the sky, is Colonel George G. London, Jr., a man whose career spanned over 31 years of service, both enlisted and as an officer pilot. This is his story. Born on a sunny day in Wilmington, North Carolina, on May 19, 1947, his father, who called him Bugs Bunny, told him, "Son, whatever you do, do your best. I can't guarantee you'll be the best, but you will be one of the best." With this sound advice in mind, and enlisted into the United States Air Force shortly after graduation. Entering basic military training in July 1965, he served for 3 years, 9 months, and 14 days, according to him, where afterwards he returned to college at North Carolina A&T State University to train in ROTC. Graduating magna cum laude in May 1973 with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, George accepted a commission into the Air Force undergraduate pilot program, beginning a journey that would further the dominance of our air power forever. Following graduation from the pilot program, George remained as an instructor for the T-38 trainer aircraft at Webb Air Force Base, Texas. Then, in 1977, he was reassigned as a C-141 instructor pilot at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey. After this, George took on the reins so few have ever been given. He graduated from test pilot school in June 1984, becoming 9th of what are now 29 black graduates out of less than 3,000 from the school's 75-year history. But that wasn't the highlight of his career.
Kind of emotional time frame, being there on the first flight in 1991, September 15th. 4 people on the airplane, 3 were from McDonnell Douglas, and I was the only Air Force crew member on the aircraft. So I represented the Air Force as the co-pilot on the first flight.
To replace the aging C-141 Starlifter, the Air Force was desiring a new cargo airlifter that would be able to exceed its capabilities and ease the burdens of the largest cargo airlifter in the fleet, the C-5 Galaxy. McDonnell Douglas designed what would be known today as the C-17 Globemaster III. When the time came for the first prototype C-17 to take its maiden flight, George London was named as the one to take it to the skies for the first time, beginning a legacy for airlift that continues to this day.
At 3:46 p.m. on Sunday, September 15th, the U.S. Air Force McDonnell Douglas C-17 airlifter took off from Long Beach Airport on its first flight. Test pilot Bill Casey was at the controls, along with Air Force co-pilot Lieutenant Colonel George London. They were accompanied by Loadmaster Ted Venturini and flight test engineer Henry Van de Graaff.
Being a C-17 pilot myself, I've wondered the differences of then and now. Being local to the DC area, I've invited Colonel London here to come out and tour the aircraft and ask him about the experience of being the first pilot of such an important aircraft. Well, thanks again, Colonel London, for joining us. Appreciate it. We appreciate everything you've brought to the 306th. Question I had for you, though, is what got you interested in flying?
I always wanted to fly, even when I was a teenager down in Wilmington, North Carolina. Used to go to the air shows all the time, watch the people flying airplanes and the paratroopers jump out. And I said, well, I would really like to do that. Didn't think I had opportunity. And then in '65, when we finished high school, generally most of the graduates from my high school went to D.C. or New York or New Jersey just to get away from Wilmington, North Carolina. And I elected to go in the military instead. And that was probably the best course of action that I could have taken, and made a great difference in my career.
Sir. And then you've flown 59 different aircraft.
57 different.
57 different aircraft.
Right.
Which one is your favorite and why?
Well, I would say the C-17 is favorite because I was the first pilot on the first flight, and my last year I was the test squadron commander. So I was very involved in the flight test operations, responsible for all the flight test operations, and just to watch it progress to what it can do today was phenomenal. I learned a lot, and hopefully it helped a lot of people in the process.
What was the most surprising thing when you were doing the test and evaluation on the C-17?
Well, I have to be careful what I say because some things should not be known. But anyway, nothing major. The first flight was kind of surprising because on the first flight everything went well, except when we raised the gear. The first time we raised the gear airborne, we raised the gear, the main gear came up, the nose gear did not. So okay, we decided to start slowing down, to put the gear back down again. But in the process of slowing down, the nose gear came up really fast. The chase aircraft said, man, that came up fast. We said, we felt it. We were concerned with whether or not it was jammed after it came up. So we didn't worry about it anymore until it came time to land later on. And we got it to Edwards to land, put the gear down, main gear came down, nose gear didn't. So now we really thought it was something right. So it started slowing down a little bit, and then it came down really fast. It felt like it fell out the bottom of the airplane. Chase said, "Boy, that really came down fast." We said, "We felt it." He said, "We have all good indications in the cockpit. It's down and locked. It's down." So that was the only surprise on the first flight. We discovered later on in the area of weight reduction, they decided to take off one of the hydraulic actuators from nose gear, and it just wasn't enough to overcome the airload. So they had to put the second hydraulic actuator back on.
And then, so you sat in the C-17 a few weeks ago, first time in 30 years. How'd that feel?
Felt great. Very, very little change to the structure, the layout of the cockpit. It's virtually the way it was 29 years ago. Last one.
Any surprises that you've seen in the C-17 since you last flew it?
Well, when I was doing the flight test, we didn't do the combat tactical descent that you do nowadays. That's new. But if there's an airplane that could handle such a maneuver, it would be the C-17.
Sure. Would you say the same, the difference between the C-141 and the C-17 as the avionics changed and you got the bells and whistles?
Well, when I was enlisted back in the 60s, I was in Vietnam, and we used to watch the F-4s taking off. And say, man, that's a bad machine right there, you know. And at the time it was top of the line fighter that we had. And then you get to test pilot school, you get a chance to fly the F-16, F-15, and you said, how could we ever thought the F-4 was an airplane? And then as an officer flying 141s all over the world, we used to think 141 was a great airplane. And it still was a very good airplane for this day. But then you fly the C-17, you said, how could I ever thought the 141 was a good airplane? So the change in technology, the change in the capability engines, the change in electronics is massive. So you can do so much more now with the same machine that you couldn't do in the past because of technology today.
Sir, how did your experience as a test pilot affect your life today?
Well, I've always enjoyed teaching. That's why I was teaching high school for the past 17 years. But what's impressive is trying to get young people to do things that they didn't think they had an opportunity to do. They always say you have to be prepared. A couple of my students a few years ago said, "Mr. London, the odds are against me because I'm black." I said, no, the odds are against you if you're not prepared. And how do you get prepared? You get prepared educationally, you get prepared mentally, and you get prepared physically. So some tasks require physical strength, others do not. But the educational impact is unbelievable. That will pave the way for your future. So make sure you decide what you want to do and you attack that educationally. And I pass that on to all my young students all the time. And be confident in what you want to do. If you want to be a pilot, do your best to be better than anyone else out there. When I teach my students, even today, I say, I want you to be better than I ever thought I could be. And that's my goal, is to make you better than I am or than I was. So always be confident. Learn as much as you can. Never be complacent and never be overconfident. That's what gets you into trouble. So I have 3 rules for flying safely and getting this stuff called gray hair. The first one is never exceed any aircraft limitation. What does that mean? That means you have to know the aircraft, you have to read the flight manual, understand what the limitations are. And secondly, never exceed your limitations. Okay? And that will depend on the aircraft type and your experience. Your private pilot, you have limitations. As you get more and more ratings, your limitations are greatly reduced. So sometimes senior pilots or experienced pilots mistake legality for proficiency. Well, I'm current until October 17th. Yes, but when is the last time you've flown? So the fact that you have current and you're legal doesn't mean it's the best thing to do. Are you proficient? What about the current weather situations? Are you current in weather activities, weather flight skills? So never mistake legality for being proficient. People that fly with you 99% of the time don't know anything about airplanes. They're counting on you to keep them safe. And the last one is someone, I don't care who it is, fly the airplane. There have been many accidents where people got involved in working in a simulated emergency and end up damaging aircraft or crashing. People close the doors in flight. They've flown airplanes many years old, doors on them. So if you're worried about it, land, close the door, take off again.
Well, sir, we appreciate the time. We appreciate your family letting you come and help us out and mentor us all the time. Unfortunately, the program for honorary squadron commander, you'd have to, it's a civilian program with no military experience, but that's why you're our special advisor, so that's kind of the moniker we've given to honorary squadron commander for you. And so on behalf of the 306, sir, I'd like you to have our patch and be our honorary squadron commander.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate that, man. It's a definite honor. My family is greatly encouraged, and they thank you for spending time with them that you guys did. And we're all always impressed with your expertise and professionalism. It's absolutely unbelievable. Thanks for inviting me to come in and be part of this effort.
Thank you, sir.